Have you ever felt like someone had complete control over your emotions? Like one careless comment, one dismissive glance, or one unfair judgment could ignite something deep inside you. It's like they have a remote control to your feelings, pressing buttons whenever they please. And before you even realize it, you're caught in a storm, your heart pounding, your mind racing, your peace shattered. I know that feeling, and I know you do too. But what if I told you it doesn't have to be this way? What if, no matter what anyone said or did, you could remain unshaken, calm, confident, completely in control? Meet David. A man with big dreams but an even bigger temper. His anger cost him friendships, opportunities, and most of all, his inner peace. Until one day, something changed. A shift so profound that it transformed the way he saw the world and himself. In today's video, we'll walk through David's journey and uncover the exact mindset shift that gave him freedom. We'll also explore a powerful story from the Bible that holds the key to emotional mastery. Stay with me until the end, because this could be the moment everything changes for you too. Welcome to Grace Bible Stories. If this video speaks to you, don't keep it to yourself, share it, because someone out there might need this just as much as you do. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button. Now, let's dive in. Section 1. The Illusion of Control. David's story, the breaking point. You've been there before. That moment when the heat rises in your chest, your hands clench, and words sharper than knives push their way past your lips before you even realize what's happening. It's like watching yourself from the outside, unable to stop the explosion. And once the storm passes, all that's left is regret, a pounding heart, and the wreckage of what used to be a peaceful moment. That was David's life, until the day it all came crashing down. David had always been a passionate guy. People admired his drive, his intensity, his ability to take charge. But with that fire came a dangerous edge. When things didn't go his way, when someone challenged him or made him feel disrespected, that same fire would consume him. One afternoon at work, everything changed. He had been working tirelessly on a project, pouring his heart into it, only for his boss to dismiss his efforts in front of the entire team. "This isn't what we discussed," his boss said flatly, barely looking up. "Redo it." David felt the blood rush to his face. The air felt thick, suffocating. The sound of his own heartbeat drowned out the room. And then, before he could stop himself, he snapped. "Are you serious? Do you even realize how much time I put into this?" His voice cut through the room like shattered glass. Heads turned. His co-workers exchanged glances, some shocked, others looking away, pretending not to witness the scene unfolding. His boss simply raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" David could see it happening the moment he crossed the line. But the anger had already taken control. He stormed out, slamming the door behind him. That single moment of unchecked emotion cost him more than he ever imagined. It didn't just ruin his day, it marked him. The respect he once commanded turned into whispers behind his back. Opportunities that were once within reach slipped away. And later that night, as he sat alone, the weight of it all hit him. How had he let himself get to this point? Why we react emotionally? You might not have had a meltdown at work like David, but you felt that surge of emotion before. That moment when someone says something that cuts too deep, and suddenly, you're no longer in control, your emotions are. It's easy to believe that other people cause our anger. If only they hadn't said that. If only they had respected me. If only they hadn't been so inconsiderate. But here's the truth that's hard to swallow. People don't create your anger. They only trigger what's already inside you. Think about it. If someone insulted you in a language you don't understand, would you feel offended? No. Because their words hold no meaning to you. The insult itself is powerless. The only reason words have weight is because of what we attach to them. Anger doesn't come from the outside. It comes from what's unresolved within us. That's why two people can experience the exact same situation and react completely differently. One person shrugs it off, the other explodes. The difference isn't in what was said, it's in how it was processed. Biblical insight, Proverbs 16 verse 32. The Bible has been teaching this truth long before modern psychology ever put it into words. Proverbs 16 verse 32 says, "Better a patient person than a warrior, one with self-control than one who takes a city." Pause and let that sink in. The world glorifies strength, power, and dominance. We admire the people who conquer, who assert themselves, who refuse to back down. But Scripture tells us that true strength isn't about overpowering others, it's about mastering yourself. A warrior can conquer cities, but a person who has control over their emotions, they conquer themselves. David had spent his whole life believing that strength meant standing his ground, proving his worth, making sure people knew they couldn't walk over him. But what he never realized was that every time he let someone trigger his anger, he wasn't in control at all. They were. Mindset shift number 1, the power of perception. The way you see the world determines how you react to it. Picture this, you're walking down the street, and a stranger bumps into you. No apology. Just keeps walking. Your mind immediately starts forming thoughts. That was rude. What's wrong with people these days? But now, imagine a different perspective. What if you found out that stranger had just received devastating news? That they were so lost in their own world, they didn't even realize they had bumped into you? Same situation. Different perception. And suddenly, the anger disappears. That's the power of how you interpret things. David's biggest breakthrough wasn't learning how to control his anger, it was learning how to change the way he saw things. He realized that every time he got angry, it wasn't about the situation itself. It was about the meaning he attached to it. So let me ask you this. What if you could rewire your brain to stop reacting? What if, instead of handing your emotions over to every frustrating situation, you took control? Because here's the truth, no one has the power to make you angry. No one has the power to steal your peace. The only way they can take it is if you give it to them. And my friend, it's time to take it back. Section 2, Understanding Emotional Triggers. David's inner battle. Have you ever had a moment where you overreacted to something and later thought to yourself, why did that bother me so much? That's exactly what David was asking himself as he sat alone in his apartment that night. His outburst at work had cost him more than just his reputation, it had shaken him to the core. He wasn't just angry at his boss anymore. He was angry at himself. Why did it feel like an invisible hand was controlling his emotions? Why did certain words hit him like a punch to the gut while others barely registered? The more he thought about it, the more he realized this wasn't just about what happened that day. His anger had been building long before that moment. It had deep roots. Memories surfaced. The time his father told him he'd never amount to anything. The teacher who laughed when he struggled with a math problem. The girl he loved who once said, "You're too intense, David. You take things too personally." And there it was. A pattern. Every time he felt dismissed, disrespected, or unappreciated, it triggered something deeper inside him. It wasn't just his boss's words that had set him off. It was the years of unspoken pain they had touched. And if he didn't face it, he would keep repeating the cycle. Where triggers come from. You have them too. We all do. There are certain words, certain tones of voice, certain situations that seem to reach into our chest and squeeze something raw, something we might not even realize is there. Maybe it's being interrupted mid-sentence. Maybe it's someone talking down to you. Maybe it's feeling like you're being ignored, unheard, or dismissed. But here's the thing, the more self-doubt and unresolved wounds you carry, the easier it is for people to control you. It's like a wound that never fully healed. If someone brushes against it, even lightly, the pain feels unbearable. And instead of recognizing it as an old injury, we react as if the person who touched it is the one who caused it. But they didn't. They just exposed what was already there. David realized that his whole life, he had been blaming others for making him feel small, when in reality, he had been carrying that feeling inside him all along. And because he hadn't dealt with it, anyone with the right words could set it off. He had been handing over the remote control to his emotions without even knowing it. And it was time to take it back. Biblical example, Jesus before Pilate. When David started looking for answers, he turned to the Bible. And he found something that changed everything. In Matthew 27 verses 12 to 14, Jesus stood before Pontius Pilate, facing false accusations. People were twisting his words, attacking his character, trying to provoke a reaction. And yet, he remained silent. No anger. No defensiveness. No need to prove himself. Why? Because he knew who he was. Jesus didn't need validation from Pilate. He didn't need the approval of the crowd. He was secure in his identity, in his purpose, in his truth. And that's why their words had no power over him. David realized that his entire life, he had been looking for something external to confirm his worth. When people questioned him, dismissed him, or criticized him, he felt the need to fight back, to prove he was enough. But what if he didn't need to prove anything at all? Mindset shift number 2, see triggers as teachers. What if, instead of seeing triggers as attacks, you started seeing them as teachers? Think about it. Every time something upsets you deeply, it's pointing to something within you that needs healing. If you feel defensive when someone questions your intelligence, maybe it's because deep down, you don't fully believe you're smart enough. If rejection crushes you, maybe it's because there's a part of you that still believes you're not worthy of love. If criticism makes you rage, maybe it's because there's a hidden part of you that fears you're not good enough. The wound is already inside. The world is just revealing it. David realized that instead of blaming people for triggering him, he needed to ask himself a different question. Why does this hurt me? Because once you understand that, the power shifts. You stop being a puppet to people's words. You start healing. And when you heal, their words lose their power. Practical action step, take your triggers back. This is where transformation begins. Right now, think about the last time someone upset you. Not just annoyed you, but really got under your skin. Got it? Now, instead of focusing on what they did, ask yourself, why did this bother me so much? Keep going. Keep digging. What belief about yourself did this situation touch? Where does that belief come from? Is it even true? Write it down. 3 things that trigger you the most. Then, beside each one, write down what it reveals about you. Because the moment you see it clearly, the moment you stop blaming others and start understanding yourself, something powerful happens. You take the control back. And when you do, the world can no longer push your buttons. Section 3. The art of emotional mastery. David's transformation begins. Something had to change. David knew it. Sitting in the stillness of his apartment, he thought about every moment anger had controlled his life. The bridges he had burned. The people he had hurt. The sleepless nights, replaying words he wished he could take back. He always thought anger was something external, something triggered by the world around him. But now, he saw it for what it truly was, a storm within himself. And storms don't disappear by pretending they're not there. For the first time, David didn't try to suppress his anger. He didn't push it down or ignore it. Instead, he sat with it, listened to it, studied it. And that's when he had his breakthrough. Anger, he realized, wasn't the enemy. It was just energy, raw, powerful, and deeply personal. And like fire, it could destroy or it could be harnessed into something greater. The key wasn't to eliminate anger. The key was to master it. The 3-second pause technique. One morning, David found himself in a familiar situation. A coworker made a snide remark, something passive-aggressive, something designed to provoke. He felt the familiar heat rise, the tension in his chest, the urge to retaliate. But this time, he remembered what he had learned. He didn't react immediately. Instead, he took a single breath. 3 seconds of silence. In that pause, something miraculous happened. He saw the situation differently. The coworker's words no longer felt like an attack, but like noise, just words, floating in the air, powerless until he decided what to do with them. For the first time in his life, he chose something different. He exhaled, gave a small, knowing smile, and let it go. No argument. No battle. Just peace. And it felt good. You see, emotions move like waves. They rise, they crash, and then they fade. But most people don't wait for the wave to pass. They get caught in it. That's why the 3-second pause is so powerful. The next time you feel anger rising, try this. Step 1, pause. Instead of reacting instantly, stop. Take one deep breath. 3 seconds is all it takes. Step 2, ask yourself, am I about to give my power away? Because every time you let anger dictate your actions, that's exactly what you're doing. Step 3, choose a response, not a reaction. Maybe it's silence. Maybe it's a deep breath. Maybe it's walking away. Or maybe it's responding with wisdom, not emotion. At first, it might feel unnatural. But like any muscle, the more you train it, the stronger it becomes. And soon, you won't just be reacting differently. You'll be thinking differently, feeling differently, living differently. Biblical wisdom, James 1 verse 19. The Bible has always known what psychology is only now catching up to. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. James 1 verse 19. Think about how different the world would be if people lived by this one verse. How different would your life be? Most people do the opposite. They're quick to get angry, quick to speak, and slow to listen. But James 1 verse 19 isn't just a moral guideline, it's a roadmap to emotional mastery. David had spent years being quick to react, quick to argue, quick to defend himself. But now, he was learning the power of patience, the strength of silence, the wisdom of waiting. And with every moment he practiced it, he felt freer. Mindset shift number 3, indifference is power. There's a common misconception that mastering your emotions means you stop feeling them. That you become numb, disconnected, indifferent in a cold, distant way. But real indifference, the kind that brings peace, isn't about shutting off emotions. It's about not being controlled by them. It's the difference between being a leaf in the wind or the tree standing still. Imagine walking through a crowded street. Someone bumps into you. No apology. Just keeps walking. You have two choices. You can let it ruin your mood. Replay it in your mind. Feel the frustration grow. Or you can recognize it for what it is, meaningless. A moment so insignificant it doesn't deserve your energy. David had spent his whole life handing his peace over to people who didn't even know they had it. But not anymore. Because here's the truth. The strongest people in the world are not the ones who shout the loudest. They're the ones who don't need to shout at all. They don't waste energy on battles that don't matter. They don't let small people drag them into small fights. They don't give away their power so easily. And neither should you. Because your peace, it's worth protecting. And not everyone deserves access to it. Your challenge, try it for one day. Tomorrow, life will test you. That's a guarantee. Someone will be rude. Someone will say something insensitive. Someone will push your buttons. When it happens, remember this moment. Remember that you have a choice. Pause. Breathe. Ask yourself, do I really want to give this person control over my emotions? And then, choose differently. Because the moment you do, you've already won. Section 4, Walking in Unshakable Peace. David's final test. The real test doesn't come when you're alone, reflecting on life in the quiet comfort of your thoughts. It comes in the moment when life throws you back into the fire, when old triggers resurface, and you're forced to choose. And for David, that moment arrived sooner than he expected. It was an ordinary afternoon. He was at work, focused, feeling lighter than he had in years. His mind was clearer. His emotions no longer felt like a wild horse pulling him in every direction. And then, like clockwork, the test came. A coworker, the same one who always knew exactly how to push his buttons, walked by and made a sarcastic remark. A comment laced with mockery, just loud enough for others to hear. David felt it. The familiar spark of irritation, the heat rising, the automatic urge to snap back. For a split second, the old him almost resurfaced. But then, something different happened. He paused. He heard the words, but they felt distant, as if they were just sounds passing through the air. No weight. No meaning. It was as if his mind had suddenly slowed down time, giving him the space to choose. And he chose peace. Not weakness. Not avoidance. But a deep, quiet strength, the kind that doesn't need to prove anything to anyone. He smiled, nodded slightly, and went back to work. And in that moment, he realized something life-changing. He was free. How to develop emotional resilience. What David experienced wasn't luck. It wasn't just a one-time moment of self-control. It was the result of training his mind and emotions to operate differently. And you can do the same. Here's how. Step 1. Identify and heal emotional wounds. You can't control your reactions until you understand why you react the way you do. Every trigger, every overreaction, every moment of anger, it's pointing to something deeper. So, take time to ask yourself, what situations make me lose control? What emotions do they bring up? When was the first time in my life I felt this way? Your present reactions are often echoes of past pain. But here's the good news: once you recognize them, you can heal them. And when you heal, the triggers lose their power. Step 2. Practice mental detachment. Observe, don't absorb. Imagine you're standing on a beach, watching the waves crash in. Some waves are calm, some are wild. But you're just watching. Now imagine if, instead of standing on the beach, you were in the water. Every wave would hit you. Some would pull you under. Some would toss you around. That's the difference between observing your emotions and being consumed by them. The next time you feel anger or irritation rising, take a step back, mentally. Instead of thinking, "I am angry," try, "I am noticing anger inside me." See the difference? One means you are the anger. The other means you are simply witnessing it. And when you become the observer, emotions lose their grip on you. Step 3. See negative people as lost souls, not threats. There will always be people who try to provoke you. Some do it intentionally, some don't even realize it. But here's the truth. People who hurt others are hurting inside. Think about it. Happy, healed people don't go around spreading negativity. Only those carrying pain do. So the next time someone tries to get under your skin, instead of seeing them as an enemy, see them as a lost soul. Not a threat. Not an opponent. Just someone carrying a burden they don't know how to handle. And when you see them that way, compassion replaces anger. Strength replaces defensiveness. Peace replaces tension. The ultimate biblical lesson, Jesus on the cross. The greatest example of unshakable peace comes from Jesus himself. Imagine this: you are falsely accused. You are insulted. You are humiliated. And in your final moments, hanging in agony, you have every right to respond with anger. But what did Jesus say? "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they are doing." Luke 23 verse 34. Forgive them. Not curse them. Not prove them wrong. Not demand justice. Why? Because Jesus knew something most people never realize. The moment you let go of resentment, you are truly free. And that's what he wants for you too. Mindset shift number 4, emotional freedom is a choice. For so long, David believed peace was something that came after everything around him changed. If people stopped being rude, I'd be happy. If life was fair, I'd feel at peace. If others respected me, I wouldn't get angry. But that was the wrong way of thinking. Because real peace doesn't come from controlling the outside world. It comes from mastering your inner world. Imagine living a life where someone insults you and you feel nothing. A situation turns chaotic and you stay calm. Someone disrespects you and you don't take it personally. That's not just a fantasy. That's a reality you can create. Because peace isn't something you wait for. It's something you choose. And the moment you do, no one, no words, no situation can take it from you again. Choose peace, choose freedom. David changed. No more reacting in anger. No more letting careless words steal his peace. His relationships healed. His confidence grew. And most importantly, he was finally in control, not just of his emotions, but of his life. But here's the best part, this isn't just David's story. It can be yours too. You don't have to live life feeling like a puppet to other people's words and actions. You don't have to lose sleep over negativity. You don't have to let anyone decide how you feel. Because the truth is, no one can make you feel anything unless you give them permission. And peace? It's not something you wait for, it's something you choose, right now. So ask yourself, who in your life have you been giving power over your emotions? And more importantly, are you ready to take it back? Comment below, I choose peace. And if this message spoke to you, share it, because someone out there might need this just as much as you do. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Every week, Grace Bible Stories brings you life-changing lessons you won't want to miss.